What is up, guys? Happy Thursday, December 4th. Good evening to everybody. We're going to hang out for, 20, 30 minutes. We're going to cover the player news from today. I'll take any start-sit questions you guys have after I read some of the player news. It looks like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to play tonight. So it looked like he was walking through or jogging through his walkthroughs, his routines pregame, and he says he's going to go. So we get Amon-Ra. I did not expect him to play. He didn't really practice at all at any point this week. So a bit of a surprise there. Let me see what else. So Penei Sewell is also active tonight. So two big ones for the Lions, getting Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's a huge deal. I'm pretty excited for this game tonight. Dallas, Detroit. This is basically an NFC wildcard playoff game here in week 14. So pretty good stuff here. I think this game probably pretty high scoring. I'm hoping for the over. I think it's like 51. It might even be over 51 and a half now, but it is a pretty high scoring opportunity for us. Let's get into the player news. Justin Herbert officially limited today. They play on Monday Night Football. So this is this is their Wednesday. It's their first actual practice report. I think he's playing, man. I think he's playing with that broken left hand. Omarion Hampton here, limited in practice, expecting him to play as well. I have him kind of ranked as a low-end RB2. I still expect Kamani Vidal to be involved. Arizona Cardinals. So Marvin Harrison Jr. with the heel, Trey Benson with the knee. These guys don't practice again today after not practicing yesterday. So this puts them on the strong side of doubtful. I just don't expect them, even if they were to get a limited practice in tomorrow, it just doesn't feel like they're going to play this weekend. So Emari Demercado was limited. He might be back for them this Sunday, which would complicate things because they've been using 2 to 3 backs ever since they lost Connor and Benson. Bam Knight's going to lead the team in carries. Bam Knight's been showing to be a good receiving back too. So he's probably the safest play of the backs there. But if Demercado plays, he's going to hop probably Michael Carter and be their RB2. So we'll find out more tomorrow. It would be nice if they just ruled Demercado out for one more game, because then I think Carter and Bam Knight are both usable. But we'll watch that Arizona Cardinal backfield tomorrow for reports. Woody Marks practiced today, limited, so good news for him. Dylan Sampson does not practice today. He's tracking towards doubtful. So Jerome Ford would be their RB2. I don't think he's a guy that we're super excited about, but if you guys play in some dirty deep leagues and you need someone that can at least, catch a couple passes, run the ball 4-6 times, he'd be the guy for you. Drake London, back-to-back, did not practice. Don't think he's going to play. It's going to be another week of Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney and a lot of Bijan and a little bit of Algier. Mike Evans, back-to-back limited days with that collarbone injury. I don't think he plays in week 14. I think he's out there week 15, though. So if Tampa Bay can get their stuff together and beat the Saints this weekend, they're going to be feeling pretty good about going into week 15 with another win. And Mike Evans coming back. Chris Godwin's getting healthy. It's looking good for Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving's back. Chris Olave was limited today. I think he missed yesterday with that back issue, but now he's back on track to playing. If he missed today, I would have been a little concerned. Alvin Kamara did not practice today, though, with the knee and the ankle thing. So I'm assuming he's out. Devin Neal, probably a low-end RB2 for us this weekend. T. Higgins practiced in full today. It looks like he's going to be fine from that concussion he suffered 2 games ago. Aaron Jones limited in practice with the shoulder. He's on track to play this weekend. I still like Jordan Mason. He's been a good runner for them at times when they've needed him. But with Aaron Jones out there, Jones will be a low-end RB2 in my rankings, assuming he plays, and Jordan Mason will probably be a RB 30 to 35, somewhere in that range for me. No Josh Palmer for the Bills, not that it matters. Dalton Kincaid, though, does matter. He was limited today. I think he's going to give it a go this weekend. And if you have Dalton Kincaid's been having a nice season before this injury got him. He's all of the advanced metrics really like what Kincaid's been putting together. And honestly, he's kind of like the most important part of this passing game. I know Khalil Shakir is there to lead the team in receptions and things like that, but Kincaid was a huge part to what they did. And he kind of opened up the field for other guys because they have to pay attention to him in the middle of the field. So Kincaid coming back against the Bengals, I'm probably going to throw him out there if he plays. Good news for Jaden Daniels. We have a full practice report for him with that left elbow injury. So I'm expecting Jaden Daniels to play this weekend against the Vikings. We have Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, and Marshawn Lloyd all limited today. That's back-to-back limiteds for that group here. The Packers getting healthier on offense. I don't know if any of these guys play. I don't think Marshawn Lloyd plays, but I think Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden are more probable than questionable at this point. We did get Parker Washington back for the Jags today after not practicing yesterday. I don't think I love him in my lineups this week, but Parker Washington's been good to us throughout the year. JJ McCarthy did clear the concussion protocol, so expect him to play week 14 against the Commanders. And then what else do we got here? Chicago Bears, Rome Odunze did not practice yesterday, did not practice today. This looks pretty bad. I think he's doubtful. He could play limited tomorrow in practice, but I at this point, to me, he's a strong doubtful. And even if he plays, I am a little bit concerned there. Now, Kyle Monungai, who missed practice yesterday, he was limited today. So I'm at least feeling more optimistic about him being available for Sunday. But we have huge questions on Rome Odunze. Lamar Jackson not seen participating in practice today. Lately he's been kind of taking Wednesdays off, and that's fine. He practiced yesterday, but not practicing today. So I don't know if they're just changing up the routine or what, but a little bit of concern there. I want to see his report tomorrow and make sure he's good to go. And then, we're all caught up here with our practice report. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight on this Thursday night. We got a good game going tonight. We got Christian in here, Lamar, Dak, or Jaden Daniels. Lamar Jackson just does not have any confidence for us right now. He's been arguably his last 3 games have been 3 of the worst games I've seen from Lamar Jackson. And I think right now you take Dak Prescott. I got Dak Prescott up at QB2 in my rankings this week. I do have Lamar Jackson at QB7, and I have Jaden Daniels at QB13. I'm going to limit my expectations for Jaden Daniels just a little bit. The Vikings defense is still pretty good. They still, I still trust Brian Flores. This game's in Minnesota. I think I'm going Dak Prescott here. I was looking at his over-unders. Like, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns tonight. He's probably flirting with 300 yards. I think you feel pretty good about the Dak game tonight against the Lions. Gadsden or Mark Andrews? I'm going to have Gadsden higher in my rankings. He's tight end 8 for me. Mark Andrews is tight end 13. My issue with Mark Andrews is it's just there's no volume there. And he's been very touchdown dependent of late. If he doesn't get a touchdown, it's a pretty bad score. Whereas Gadsden, and I know he didn't look good last weekend. I think a lot of that was just the Herbert injury, and they didn't have to throw the ball that much. They pretty much ran with Vidal the whole second half of that game. So I'm going to give Gadsden another role here because I think he's a pretty safe floor. He's got arguably the same floor as Mark Andrews, and we've seen him go off for 6-7 catches and in big yardage games, and touchdowns are there for him. Monday Night Football at home against Philly. I'm going Gadsden in that one, but Andrews just got paid, so maybe he makes a statement. And then to me, it does look like Drake London's going to be out. Just back-to-back DNPs to open the week is not a sign of confidence for me. I have him at the bottom of my rankings for receivers because I'm anticipating that he's not going to play. And then I'm going to move Amon-Ra up right now. Make sure I get him in my lineups where I have him. I'm going to put against Dallas, man. I gotta put Amon-Ra. I'm going to put him 1 after George Pickens. I'll have Amon-Ra wide receiver 6. I'm going to lower Jameson Williams just a little bit here to wide receiver 2 category. So there you have it. Ladd McConkey, Pittman, and Brian Thomas Jr. I think you have one clear guy that separates himself from that group there, Christian. It's going to be Ladd McConkey for me, who is wide receiver 12. I really like this opportunity for him. He's been pretty steady. He's lifted his, I know the first month was pretty brutal for Ladd McConkey, but he's reestablished himself as the main threat in the passing offense. And going up against the Eagles, I'm not super afraid of the Philadelphia Eagles passing defense. They do rank middle of the road here. They've only allowed 6 receiving touchdowns on the year, but they've allowed a lot of yards and a lot of catches. I think Ladd McConkey will be busy on Monday Night Football. So he's the one guy that I would take over all these guys pretty easily. I do think Michael Pittman's interesting this weekend going up against Jacksonville. That game could be kind of fun. And Daniel Jones, Indy's reeling. They need to win here. And I just think I'm not really comfortable putting Brian Thomas Jr. in right now. Just it looks like Jacoby Myers is their wide receiver 1. They like Brenton Strange. They like Parker Washington when he's out there. And I do think Parker Washington will be a little limited in this week's game. So Brian Thomas probably more of their true number 2 receiver, but we just don't really have that faith in him right now. So I'm ranking them McConkey, Pittman, BTJ, but McConkey clear cut the wide receiver ahead here. For comparison, I got McConkey at wide receiver 11 this week. Pittman's wide receiver 20. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 33 for me. And hey, good evening to Double Tap. Hope you're doing well. I think we're in love with Michael Wilson this week, especially if the way this is going, Marvin Harrison's not going to play. I know the Rams is not necessarily a defense that we want to mess with, but you can throw the ball on them. Like I think their other stats are more daunting. I'm looking at the Rams here on defense. They're one of the better teams against the running backs and the quarterbacks, but they do have one green spot on this chart that I'm looking at here, and it's the wide receiver spot. So they give up about 31 points per game to the wide receiver position, which would rank, I don't know, what is that? That's 19. So slightly below average here. Not a bad spot to play Michael Wilson in a game where I expect the Cardinals to have to throw the ball, another 40 times in this one. So we like Michael Wilson quite a bit this week. So if you're not going to start Jayden Reed this week, I think that's a strategy thing that I do sometimes. And I know some leagues are against that, where if a guy is on IR and he becomes eligible, you have to get him off your IR. I'm talking to you, Jesse, my good friend Jesse out there. But if you can leave him in the IR for 1 week here and pick up another stash player, I think I'm fine with that. Whether that's, I don't know, Devon Vele would be a good one. I do think, who else comes to mind here? Pat Bryant for the Denver Broncos comes to mind. I'm sure Adonai Mitchell and John Mechie and things like that were picked up, but I'm open to snagging a guy, or, if you just want to be comfortable and just grab Jayden Reed and push him up, because I think he's playing on Sunday here. So if you just want to push him up, you can push him up. But there's really not a lot of people out there anymore that are going to make a huge difference unless you want to grab a handcuff. And at this point, you'd have to let me know kind of who's available, Double Tap, because it is pretty slim picking. So I'm comfortable just moving him up. If you want to tell me who's out there, maybe we can find a guy to stash, a tight end to stash Jayden Reed or Michael Wilson. So that's tough, because with Marvin Harrison Jr. probably not playing this weekend, like, you got to find a way to get Michael Wilson in your lineup. And with Jayden Reed, there's the question of what's his workload going to be. I expect him to be that's Garrett Wilson. Okay, so Garrett Wilson. I'm stashing Jayden Reed over Garrett Wilson. It's just a more fruitful offense. Give me Jordan Love during Toyotathon, and the Packers offense can score 25, 30 points a game, something like that. I think that's the better stash. And we actually have Jayden Reed on the field right now practicing. He's ready to get, loaded to the roster. Whereas Garrett Wilson, they still have to get him practicing. They have to activate his practice window yet, which could take a 1 or 2 week ramp up of him practicing. Jayden Reed's ready to go. I think he's the easy answer there, Frosty. And good evening to Frosty, by the way. Omarion Hampton is back, man. They've kind of been hinting at this. They hinted at it last week that they said that they think he could play week 14. He's been practicing, and they play on Monday night, so they only have 1 day of practice reports out. But I do think Omarion Hampton's going to play on Monday Night Football. I think Kamani Vidal is going to be involved, so I just want to temper expectations a little bit for Omarion Hampton. I have him at RB20. So he's like in this big group of guys like Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monungai, Woody Marks, those kind of names for me. So if you don't have a better option, you can put him out there and hopefully he catches 2-3 passes. Hopefully he gets you 8 to 10 touches. The Chargers like using those backs, but I don't see Vidal going away completely in this game here. But hopefully we got some juice. Hopefully Hampton's fresh and ready to go, and he provides a little jolt of electricity to that offense. I'm fine with this one. I personally, I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to do much for us for the remainder of the season. Best case scenario, Garrett Wilson starts practicing next week. I don't know if he plays week 15. I think best case scenario is he plays week 16 for you. So then you have week 16 and week 17 to maybe think about playing this guy. But I'm not quite sure. In this case, yeah, I'll take Garrett Wilson over Darnell Mooney, because if we're not using Mooney, let's go ahead and just grab Wilson and see what happens. And we got Jayden Reed. London, not really. I'm kind of concerned about Atlanta because I don't see them making the postseason, man. This team could start shutting down, which scares me a little bit, especially with Drake London, who, for a while there, he was the fantasy wide receiver 1. So I am a little concerned for the Falcons guys. Like, I don't think they're going to shut Bijan Robinson down, but we might start to see more Tyler Algier on a weekly basis, if you know what I'm saying. So Atlanta, a full 2.5, 3 games back in the NFC South. If they lose to the Seahawks this weekend, I'm nervous about them kind of shutting it down. And yeah, Terry McLaurin did look pretty good. Washington 3-9. I think there's a couple things moving there. Is they want to get Jaden Daniels back on the field just so he can kind of knock some rust off and basically sell some tickets. And then you also have McLaurin, who they just paid a bunch of money, and he wants to get out there and show them that that's probably worth the investment. So a little bit different situation. I don't know if that's completely it, but keep plugging away with Terry this weekend. Yeah, and I don't know what the issue is, but it's a knee injury for him, and the fact that he hasn't been able to practice now for, I don't know, this is the 3rd week that he's not been able to practice. I'm starting to get a little nervous here that they're being extra cautious with him, because they do need him out there. They do need their best receiving weapon out there. I'm going to pull up some other things here and see if I can find some interesting notes for us. I'm going to look at the DraftKings game lines for this week. If you guys are interested, I don't know if you guys do, survivor pools or any leagues like that, but Tampa Bay's they got the highest spread. Tampa Bay -8.5 this weekend against the Saints. The Broncos -7.5 against the Raiders. The Rams -7.5 against the Arizona Cardinals. And then there's your Seahawks -7 against Atlanta. So that's good news. Hopefully, and I'm not sure. For me, if London's practicing next week on Wednesday, limited Thursday, limited Friday, I think that's probably the most likely path to get him back on the field. A lot of times you see these players come back from an injury and they're going to practice for a week, miss a game, and then practice again for 1 more week. Usually they want 2 weeks of practice, but with London, they might be okay with getting him back in after 1 week. But I don't know, man. This weekend's games are fantastic. We have so many banger games that are mini playoff games, if you will. The Colts, Jags battling for the AFC South. You have tonight's game, Cowboys and Lions. That one's a pretty good show. Texans, Kansas City. That's an AFC wildcard game right there. You have Cincinnati, Buffalo, which could be really fun if Cincinnati pulls that one off. You have the Steelers. You have the Ravens. That's a huge AFC North game for first place. And then, of course, the NFC North, Chicago versus Green Bay. I don't get why Green Bay's -6.5 at home against the Bears. I think it should be more like 3.5. I think that's where I would set the line. So the Bears, they're going to play sound defense. They're going to play fundamental football and run the ball. So I'm a little shocked about the 6.5 for Green Bay. And yeah, it would have been nice, with fantasy playoffs starting next week, it would have been nice to get London back for this week so he can kind of knock some rust off and we have some faith going into the playoffs. But at this point, he can maybe play limited tomorrow at practice and have a chance to play. But I think right now it's looking doubtful for Mr. London this week. We're starting all the Lions tonight. We're starting all the Cowboys tonight. I think this game might be one of the best. Like, it's been a while since we've had a really good Thursday night football game. I think this one lives up to the expectation, and hopefully we get a banger to start this awesome week 14. There's 55.5 total points and implied in this one. So yeah, I'm starting Dak. I'm starting Goff. You're starting the running backs. You're starting the receivers and Jake Ferguson as well. There's not really a tight end to start for the Detroit Lions right now, but you want to make sure you get all your guys in. So I did not load up any prop bets tonight, but I think this is a great game to get some. So let me pull up the old DraftKings Sportsbook here. I think you're taking Dak Prescott to throw 2 touchdowns. Let me pull up the odds here. The top touchdown odds for tonight, you got Jahmyr Gibbs -260. I think that's very likely to happen. Javonte Williams -140. That's pretty decent number there. And then you got David Montgomery -125. So they're favoring the running backs pretty heavily for touchdowns tonight. But the sports books are saying that both quarterbacks are throwing 2 touchdowns. So I think I want to pick on the receivers tonight. CeeDee Lamb +115 to score. I'm interested there. George Pickens +125 to score. I'm very interested there as well. And then with Amon-Ra, He's plus 120 to score. I think I'm doing the Jameson Williams plus 135. I think they kind of awoken him last week, and hopefully he can continue to keep that momentum going. And then Jake Ferguson plus 145. If I just look at the fantasy points allowed here to these guys, let me see what we got going on. So we know the Cowboys defense is pretty bad. They've been playing better lately, but they give up the most quarterback points and, up there with the worst receiver points allowed. So it is a great matchup for Dak. And then on the Lions side here, they're kind of, bad against everything here. They're a little bit tighter against tight ends, but you can pretty much not worry about the defenses in this one. I think it's going to be, again, 55.5 implied points tonight. You want to get those receivers. I like all the touchdown props for the receivers, honestly. Lamb, Pickens, Jameson. I think if you put some money on all three of those guys to score, you're going to probably get at least 2 of those W's and can just kind of keep rolling with that. Again, I like the passing props for tonight. I think Dak and Goff both throw 2 touchdowns for them to, and these are heavy favorited for them to throw 2 touchdowns. We're talking minus 231 for Goff, 2 touchdowns, and minus 201 for Dak with 2 touchdowns. And then the yards, they have Dak at 280 yards. I think I take the over on the Dak yards. I don't really want to take Goff yards just because I think Jahmyr Gibbs and Monty could be involved in this one. But I do think the Goff touchdowns are there. And let me see the rushing props tonight. I don't really like taking a lot of rushing props tonight, but they're giving Javonte Williams 16 rushing attempts. So if you like Javonte Williams, his yardage prop actually looks pretty decent at 64.5. So 16 times 4 would get you right there at 64. So if he's running over 4 yards a carry, Javonte Williams might be the secret weapon tonight. So I think it's hard, man. Just not practicing all week. We know he's a really good player. I'm hoping that this ankle injury doesn't get flared up on. I think that's the only thing that we have to worry about tonight is if he gets stepped on or if he tweaks it again. That's the only thing that we're worried about. But this Dallas defense, man, it's going to just allow Amon-Ra to get open. And that's one of Amon-Ra's best traits is getting open quick. We can do all the ins and the outs and the cuts in the middle of the field. So hopefully that doesn't restrict him from doing too well. I think we're not going to probably see a 20, 30-point game from Amon-Ra tonight, but if you have him, you probably have to play him. I still have him as a top 10 receiver in my rankings. I don't know. Let me look at his numbers real quick. So they have Amon-Ra at 5.5 receptions. They have him going over that. So they're giving him 6 catches tonight, and they're giving him about 64 yards, which I think is right. I can see him having a good high reception total, but his yards are going to be down a little bit. It just matters, can he get in the end zone for you? So they're giving him about 12 fantasy points, 6 for 60 is kind of what it's looking at. So I think you take that floor for Amon-Ra and hope for the touchdown to get you up into the 18s and the 20s. At this point, they're the clear-cut number 1 defense. I think they've shown us several times that it doesn't really matter who they play. They're going to keep the score low. They're going to get pressure. They're going to intercept the ball. They get they get Carolina next week. They get the Raiders the next week, and then they do play the Chargers week 17. So I don't really care about week 17. We can make that decision when we get there, but you're starting them weeks 15 and 16 against the Cardinals and the Raiders, which both those games are at home, by the way. So Texans are a awesome stash for the playoff run coming up. Jayden Reed is primarily their slot player. Yeah, they're going to keep my guess is Romeo Doubs will continue to run the most routes on the outside. Christian Watson will continue to operate as the number 2 in 2 wide receiver sets. And then I think they're going to start leaning more into the 3 wide receiver sets to get their best players on the field, especially now that the tight end is beat up with Tucker Kraft gone. So Reed will play the number 3 spot. He'll be number 3 in snaps and routes and hopefully just rack up, 3, 4, 5 catches per game and provide some big yards after catch opportunities for them because that's what they need. They really need that yards after catch that Kraft offered. But this first game back, because Dontavian Wicks is playing so well, we might see a little bit of a rotation. So even if Reed's playing against the Bears this weekend, I'm not going to put him in my lineup. We want to watch. We want to get some data points and see how it looks. It's very true. London could be the same thing. If you get a limited practice tomorrow from London, or if they say, if we get the coach, coming out and saying, hey, like we think he's going to try and warm up on Sunday morning and see how he feels. And if he feels good, we'll play him. Maybe that could be true too. So we're not going to rule out London yet, but I'm going to keep my doubtful tag on him. Seattle D or Texans D better on paper. I'm going the Texans defense on paper, man. They kind of have everything, and they really haven't allowed any team to go nuts on them. The Jaguars are the team that has actually scored the most points, and that's the only team all season that has scored more than 20 points on this team. They've held the Rams under 20, the Bucks under 20. They held the Jags under 20 once. They held the Ravens under 20. The Seahawks put 27 on them, so maybe that's the other spot there. But they kept the Rams or the 49ers in check. They kept the Broncos in check. They kept the Bills under 20. Like, this team is just really, really good. And I think they're finally starting to hit their stride on offense a little bit too, which is leading to wins. So looking good for Houston. And I think Houston has a chance to sneak into his wild card this year. Yeah, I think Odunze is trending towards not playing in a huge NFC game here. So I'm gonna as of today, I'm going to probably move Odunze down. I'm going to move DJ Moore up. And then honestly, instead of picking up Garrett Wilson here, I'd go pick up Luther Burden if I could for this weekend. Just throwing that name out there. Luther Burden would be the guy that I might be more excited about playing Luther Burden than DJ Moore if Odunze doesn't play. So file that away. Do I play Rico or BTJ? Rico's on bye this weekend, so you got to play BTJ. If we're talking about next week, we'll evaluate that next week. I'm a little nervous about Chuba, but if BTJ comes out and has a respectable game, we might be playing BTJ next week. He started so hot this year with the touchdowns, and they just have not been there the last 2 months. So it is frustrating. So yeah, we're going to get Brian Thomas Jr. in there. Unless if you can go pick up Luther Burden, man, I'm open to playing. I might have Luther Burden ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. in my rankings tomorrow if we get it. So Fridays, I like to wait to see who's been ruled out. I like to see that final practice report, and then I make my final adjustment. But I might have Luther Burden ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. I might have Luther Burden ahead of DJ Moore tomorrow. So we shall see. But that's going to do it for tonight's, guys. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Enjoy the banger of a game tonight. I think we're going over 55.5. I'm going to go Cowboys 30, Lions 27. It's going to come down to I don't want it to come down to a field goal. I want it to come down to, it's 27-23. The Cowboys need a touchdown to win, and they go get it with George Pickens or something. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Marvin's done for the year. The heel injury is the issue now. The appendix, I think, is behind him, but we'll see. I haven't really heard anything on this. If he can start, the Cardinals are also just going nowhere fast, so they might shut him down. I don't think he's done for the year, though. I'm assuming he's going to be out this week, but we'll get reports next week on that. But there you have it, guys. Enjoy the game tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you we'll see you next time. I don't know when I'm going to do a show next. It might be Sunday morning. It might be Saturday. It might be Friday. We'll see. Adios, guys. Peace.